For years, Republican senators have acted like they are powerless to stand up to Donald Trump. They complain privately. They leak their concerns anonymously. But when it is time to cast a vote, exercise oversight, or defend the authority of Congress, most of them fall in line. Why? Because they are afraid. They are afraid Trump will attack them. They are afraid he will endorse a primary challenger. They are afraid Republican voters will turn against them, and above all, they are afraid of losing their careers. But something remarkable happens when one of these senators retires, or when Trump ends that career for them. Suddenly, they rediscover their principles. Suddenly, they remember that the Senate is a separate branch of government. Suddenly, they find courage. And John Cornyn may be the perfect example. Less than 3 months ago, Cornyn was still desperately trying to win Donald Trump's endorsement for another term in the Senate. Cornyn repeatedly reminded people that he had voted with Trump more than 99% of the time, and in early May, he introduced legislation to rename a Texas highway after Trump. The proposal would have renamed U.S. Route 287 as Interstate 47, or the Trump Interstate, in honor of the 47th president. Think about how embarrassing that is. But it didn't work. Trump endorsed Cornyn's primary opponent, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. And on May 26th, Paxton defeated Cornyn in the Republican primary runoff. That ended Cornyn's Senate career. And almost immediately, a completely different John Cornyn appeared. The senator, who had spent years demonstrating loyalty to Trump, suddenly began threatening to block Trump's nominees. He used his position on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to hold up 2 ambassador nominations unless the administration released billions of dollars Congress had appropriated for AIDS treatment in Africa. Cornyn called it unacceptable for the administration to sit on money that had been legally appropriated by Congress. And here is the important part. His pressure worked. The administration gave Cornyn commitments regarding the release and transfer of the funds. Cornyn then allowed the nominees to advance, but warned that his final votes would depend on whether the administration kept its promises. Now he and another departing Republican senator, Thom Tillis, are threatening to block Trump's Attorney General nominee, Todd Blanche. Cornyn is demanding changes to a controversial $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund connected to the settlement of Trump's lawsuit against the IRS. He is also objecting to protections involving tax audits of Trump, his family, and his businesses. And because Republicans have such a narrow margin on the Judiciary Committee, Cornyn's vote matters, as he put it. If they want to get him out of the committee, I think they realize they need to talk to us. Listen to that statement. Cornyn sounds like a senator. He sounds like a member of an independent branch of government who understands that the president needs his vote. He understands that he has leverage. Now, even this tiny step isn't enough here. Blanche is a disgrace who should never be Attorney General. But here is the obvious question. Where was this John Cornyn before he lost his primary? Look, we get it. There's some level of loyalty that comes with having a president of your own party in office. But it's obvious that many of these senators have been too afraid to exercise their powers to take on Trump, even on his most outrageous policies. Cornyn is one of many senators who simply chose not to use that power aggressively while his career depended on Donald Trump. Cornyn has now offered one of the most revealing admissions you will ever hear from a politician. Explaining his newfound independence, he said, "I can just do my job and not have to worry about the politics." That is not an inspiring statement. It is a confession. Cornyn is admitting that, before he lost, doing his job was secondary to worrying about the politics. He is admitting that political fear affected how he carried out his constitutional responsibilities. He is admitting that now, only after his career has been ended, he feels free to act like a senator. And senators are not supposed to wait until they have nothing left to lose before doing their jobs. They are supposed to do their jobs precisely when doing so may cost them something. Cornyn was also asked how much deference the Trump White House should expect from him during his remaining months in office. His response was, "Loyalty is a two-way street." Again, that is an incredibly revealing statement. Cornyn did not finally rebel because he suddenly concluded that Trump had gone too far. He did not draw the line after Trump attacked judges or made a mockery of the Justice Department. Cornyn changed after Trump betrayed John Cornyn, and this is not just about Cornyn. Capitol Hill now has what some people jokingly call the YOLO Caucus. Lawmakers who are retiring or leaving office and suddenly feel free to confront Trump because they no longer have to face Republican primary voters. Thom Tillis is another example. He's leaving the Senate, and he has become much more willing to block nominees and pressure the administration. Tillis defended this behavior by saying, "This is actually senators exercising their power." He is right. That is exactly what it is. But his statement raises another question. Why weren't they exercising that power before? Demanding that the executive branch follow the law is not disloyalty. Questioning nominees is not a betrayal of the party. These are basic senatorial responsibilities. But under Trump, Republican senators have become so submissive that normal congressional oversight now looks like an act of rebellion. We see the same cowardice on tariffs. For decades, Republicans claimed to believe in free markets, limited government, and predictable economic policy. They attacked Democrats for even modest attempts to influence private markets. Had Barack Obama or Joe Biden imposed aggressive tariffs across the world, disrupted businesses through presidential decrees, and claimed broad unilateral power to determine import taxes, Republicans would have lost their minds. They would have called it socialism. Some of them probably would have called it communism. They would have held hearings every week about executive tyranny and government interference in the economy. But when Trump did it, most Republican senators surrendered. Their free market principles disappeared. Their concern about presidential power disappeared. Their supposed belief in Congress's constitutional authority over trade disappeared. Why? Because their principles were less important than their careers. These senators are not powerless. Cornyn is proving that right now. One senator can hold up a nominee. One senator can demand that the administration release appropriated funds. One senator can force the White House to negotiate. Republican senators always had this power. They were simply too gutless to use it, when doing so might provoke Trump and threaten their reelection. And this behavior is making me reconsider something I have generally viewed with skepticism: congressional term limits. Term limits would not magically make cowardly politicians courageous. They would have real drawbacks, including the loss of experienced legislators and potentially greater power for lobbyists and permanent staff. But watching these Republican senators surrender their judgment, their principles, and their constitutional responsibilities because they are desperate to protect a 30-year political career makes the idea more appealing. Maybe if senators knew from the beginning that they only had 2 terms, 12 years, they would spend less time calculating how every vote affects their next primary. Maybe a few more of them would put the country ahead of the party. John Cornyn now wants us to believe that he has finally been liberated to do his job. But no one imprisoned him. He made a choice. For years, he placed his career ahead of his responsibilities. Now that Trump has ended that career, Cornyn has suddenly remembered that a United States senator has power. The courage was always available. John Cornyn simply decided it was too expensive until he no longer had a career to lose.